Hello, everyone. I am Palmer McIntyre with the Great Trail State Coalition. Welcome to our Cities, Towns, and Counties for Trails Working Group webinar series. We are pleased to launch this series today. It's December 17th, and we are delighted to have our good friends at North Carolina's Interscholastic Cycling League with us today to talk about the power of youth trail advocacy. We're recording this, and it will become part of our Cities, Towns, and Counties for Trails resource library. So communities across the state can learn from the information that we share and work towards more trails and more and better trails in their communities all across North Carolina. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our speakers today. We have Brian Russell, who is with the North Carolina Interscholastic Cycling League. I'm going to let him introduce himself and his partner, Shell Frost. So Brian, take it away.
Yeah, thank you very much, Palmer, and thanks for inviting us to give this presentation we gave back at the Great Trail State Conference, and thank you for hosting that conference. What a great opportunity for us to come in and connect with, trail advocates from across the state. Palmer, just last week, one of our staff members was having a conversation with people in Surrey County about starting a youth mountain bike team. That's a result of that conference. That's a result of a connection we made there. So we are proud members of this coalition. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of it. Just like you said, I'm Brian Russell. I'm the director of the North Carolina Interscholastic Cycling League. It's a really long name. A lot of people call us the North Carolina NICA League, National Interscholastic Cycling Association. We're one of 32 state leagues across the nation. Why do I think we're the coolest one? Well, we live in the Great Trail State. So can't mountain bike without some great trails, and we do have a ton of great trails here in North Carolina. And thanks again for everything the coalition does to support that. I'm joined today by Shell Frost. She is our programs director. And as I often say, anything that good happens in this league is largely a result of Shell, and I just get to talk about it. But yeah, she'll tell a little bit about what we're doing in the upcoming season. By way of agenda for the meeting today, we'll tell you a little bit about who we are, what we do with this thing called youth mountain biking. But then we're going to focus a lot on what I think this community cares about is trails. Just like I said, you cannot mountain bike without trails. And so we're very thankful for all the efforts that go into developing and maintaining trails across North Carolina. And we are a part of that. We're going to tell you how we're a part of this thing called trail advocacy. And who wouldn't? Look at that young man with a wheelbarrow full of dirt. What trail builder, maintainer wouldn't want a young man or woman like that moving dirt in terms of taking care of trails? We're going to tell you how we do that and how we kind of encourage both kids and adults to take care of this wonderful resource we have here in North Carolina. Palmer, I don't mind questions throughout. If anyone online here with us wants to put their electronic hand in the air, if you could just maybe help me moderate, because Michelle knows once I get going, I just don't pay attention to anything else, and I'm just a talking. So I already mentioned a little about who we are. One of 32 state leagues across the nation. We are going into our 9th season. We are a youth development organization that essentially uses mountain bikes to develop strong mind, body, and character in middle school and high school student athletes all across North Carolina. We have about 50 teams, and at the end of the presentation, we'll show you the map where most of those teams are. And we are a spring league, meaning we're just getting started. We've gone through this thing we call preseason. Teams get formed and they start registering athletes, having some practices. And then in the spring, between March and May, every other weekend, we'll be somewhere in North Carolina hosting. You have to come to one of our events to believe it. Just 500 kids showing up to ride and play games and race on Sunday, even doing some trail work while we're out there in the communities we go to. It's a big festival atmosphere. And if you can think about, this is families in the woods on mountain bikes, not on their cell phones, connecting. And that's what being a mountain biker is, being part of a community and saying connect with those communities and just having fun in the woods, just like this young man is here riding on this trail. This is Salisbury Community Park in Salisbury, North Carolina. And that specific section of the trail he's riding on is what was worked on by some of our student athletes the week before we came to race it. And that's a special type of something, being able to work on a trail that you then get to race on. And it's like, anytime anyone asks me, like, what's your favorite trail? It's usually one that I've worked on and put some sweat equity into, and then you just love coming back to ride it. Part of our mission in taking middle school and high school student athletes and teaching them how to be mountain bikers, really giving them the skills to be lifelong mountain bikers. This is one of those things, unlike maybe a lot of your traditional ball sports, you can do pretty much your whole life. I'm 50 some years old, still on a mountain bike. I don't race a lot, and I'm not really good at racing. I do it every now and then, but man, I'm riding all the time, riding with my wife, riding with my friends. It's something that we can just enjoy for a long, long time. So we want to give our student athletes an exposure to all aspects of mountain biking, what we call in this league, a full spectrum mountain biker, just competent in all those areas. And we do that through an approach we call programs fusion. And that's why Shell's on the line with us. She is the programs director. We take various programs that NICA has established or we have augmented as a state league, and we work all of our kids through those programs. And I'll describe each one briefly, but then we're really going to get into the trail work one. There is certainly competition in this league. Palmer, you mentioned we've got a race series coming up in the spring. Yeah, that I call it the big scary. It builds confidence. Showing up in the start chute, surrounded by 50 of your peers before the start horn goes off, that's a fairly emotional event. And then you race, full speed to get to a single track trail, and you're in the woods making decisions by yourself, and you don't have a parent or coach from the sideline screaming at you. You're making some independent decisions. Competition is very important to what we do in terms of bringing out that character. Other program we have is called the Adventure Program. That is, it embraces this concept of challenge by choice. Can we go to a new trail and try something different? Can I maybe set a goal to get further down the trail? Can I go for distance? Can I see things on that trail that maybe I haven't paid attention to before? That's the Adventure Program. And again, it gets to that lifelong mountain biking aspect. Like, I'm not racing all the time, but man, I'm out on my bike as many places in North Carolina as I possibly can. The GRIT program stands for Girls Riding Together. That is a program tailored towards female student athletes and coaches. We are trying to combat this silly notion that mountain biking is just a guy's thing. It's not. We try and encourage female athletes, female coaches to be part of this community, be part of the league. And that GRIT program gives the girls a space to do that and feel welcomed. And you can imagine how awkward it is sometimes when you're the one girl that shows up to that team of full of boys. We're trying to, increase the student athlete numbers. And Shell, I think we were 23% last season, and looking to increase that until we get to 50. It's all good. And so those are the other programs, but we're going to talk specifically about Team Trail Corps today, important to this community here. Just some real quick stats before we get to that. This comes from end of season survey results. This is parents telling us, as coaches telling us, as kids telling us, here's what this does for me, this program, this youth development thing, 2 wheels in the woods. You just see a ton of benefits from, again, on the woods, not on your cell phone, connect with your friends, connect with your family, and all the benefits that come from that are just pretty spectacular. And that's what I think keeps people coming back to this league. Let's talk Teen Trail Corps. We'll spend a couple slides on this. And again, happy to field your question, but we believe part of being a lifelong mountain biker is giving back to your local trail system. The trails don't build themselves. They don't maintain themselves. It's not like, again, traditional ball sports, the county typically creating this big sports complex and the field is lined and it's all right there. Being a mountain biker is giving back and helping maintain the trails. And so we encourage our athletes and our coaches every season to get out in concert with their local trail group or the trail boss to help improve those trails. And we'll talk a little bit more about our Teen Trail Corps Ambassador Program. Shell, why don't I save that towards your part at the end of the presentation, talk about what we're doing with the ambassadors. That's essentially growing student leaders, growing student trail advocates. And this is a picture right here at Browns Creek. We've got someone from the town of White Lake on here in Elizabethtown, North Carolina, right down the road. Browns Creek is the trail system. The man on the left-hand side of the picture is Greg Brinson, the president of Cape Fear Sorba, the trail advocacy group. And next to him is one of our Teen Trail Corps committee members and an army of 40 some kids and coaches going to work on his trail. And Greg, you can barely see the smile on his face. He rarely smiles, but he's smiling this day because he can never get 40 adults to show up for a trail work day. And we showed up with, like I said, army of 40 kids and coaches to spend several hours on the Browns Creek Trail system that we then came back and raced later in the season. And that's what we try to do with our Teen Trail Corps program. What did we do last season? We had a season goal across the entire league, get at least 3,000 hours in, and the folks crushed it. A lot of our teams really embraced that concept, got with their local advocacy groups, put in over 4,000 hours across 59 trail systems. in North Carolina. And we're doing that all across the season. I mentioned we just came out of our preseason. We had a couple league preseason events. It's just an opportunity to come together and ride, meet friends you hadn't seen since last season. We did trail work at each of those preseason events in the local community we were at, giving back to the local community. It's all part of, again, being a lifelong mountain biker. And like I mentioned, before our races, as best we could, we either got to that venue before we showed up the race to help improve it, or while we were there, we were putting in some work to help take care of that venue. One thing, and we're going to do this again next season, Shell, feel free to talk about the plans for this season, but we dedicated 1 week in our season to just try and get 1,000 hours in there. And it equates to when you have 500 kids and, 500 coaches, like, hey, everyone put in an hour this week. And sure enough, they did it, got over 1,000 hours. And I just want to emphasize the fact that we always do this in concert with a trail advocacy group or the trail boss. We're not out there making our own modifications. We want to do it in concert with who owns that trail and what work is needed. And we will do that again this coming spring, just dedicate a week to doing some trail work. We let people know this is important, and we do this by recognizing both the athletes and the teams that put in the hours. And we're very thankful for a lot of our sponsors mentioned on the slide here, specifically Cognitive MTB out of Hendersonville. We give the kids stickers for doing a certain number of hours, t-shirts for a certain number of hours, gloves, custom design gloves from Cognitive last season for doing a certain number of hours. And then at the end of the season, top 5 athletes get on a podium just like the racers do with the most hours. The teams with the most hours get a flag. And pretty proud to announce here, Shell and I were at NICA's regional event back in the beginning of November. So that's 11 state leagues from across the East Coast come together to race. And our 9th graders, boy and girl, were the top hour earners across all 11 state leagues. North Carolina setting kind of this example for all the other NICA leagues of what it means to really be a mountain biker and put in some trail work. Broader, discussion. I mentioned before, we go to, this is last season's schedule, and Shell can talk a little bit about the upcoming season schedule, but we do go all across North Carolina. And while we're there, we invest in those communities. The families that come to town are, getting hotel rooms, they're eating in the restaurants. The league is buying things to support our events, and we're putting in trail work. We calculated all that last season, and we put in over $600,000 in the local communities last season. It's about $100,000 per venue, and that involves that calculation of about $30 an hour for a volunteer hour. So you take our 4,000 some hours of trail work, and that's part of that number in there. And that's what I would say. Why would you want a NICA team in your community? Because you get some trail work out of it. They're going to invest and they're going to take care of it. And so this is a snapshot of where we are across the state. Obviously, Raleigh, Charlotte, Asheville are, kind of our concentration centers, but we really have pretty good coverage across the state. And again, thanks to the Great Trail State Coalition. I've been talking with Jenny Edwards a lot about trail grants and, hey, can we improve here, improve that? What does NICA need to do its race venues? I love having those conversations, and I love signing letters for local communities saying, yeah, this would be great if you put that in, because we could either have a team there or I could bring the league there to do that. So I'll pause there. Shell, do you want to give just kind of an overview, season 9, some things we've got going on for Teen Trail Corps?
Sure. So in season 9, our Teen Trail Corps goal is to reach 6,000 hours. So that'll be almost 2,000 hours more than we did last year, which is more than triple our total from 3 seasons ago. And what I think is really cool about our approach with Programs Fusion that Brian was talking about, and creating these full spectrum mountain bikers, is you give them these different areas to participate in ways to be mountain bikers, and put different opportunities and examples of how to be a lifelong mountain biker in front of these youth, and they love it. And they just learn more reasons that they love being outdoors and enjoying those trails, and new ways to be part of their community. In some ways that we're doing that in season 9 is through growing our Teen Trail Corps ambassador team. So we've created a leadership pathway for student athletes within Teen Trail Corps. We held a student leadership weekend where we came and did leadership training, talked about how to become a good leader, a good mentor, good teammate, and got their ideas on how to grow the program that they're a part of and what the direction that they want to take it in. So giving them some ownership of the program that they participate in and letting us know what they want that to look like for them. And we are doing senior ambassadors this season as well, which we started in our grit program with our grit ambassadors, and we are now creating opportunities for them to continue to grow as leaders within Teen Trail Corps. Those ambassadors would be working on a stewardship syllabus with different goals for the season, whether that's mentoring a new student athlete, getting to know their local advocacy or conservation groups in their area, and encouraging their teams to build stronger bonds with those groups as well. So lots of ways for them to grow as leaders on and off their bikes. And what's really neat to me is as you watch these student athletes grow as athletes and as people, I have learned that some of our folks that are standing on top of the podium are also leaders within these other spaces as well. And it gives them a different kind of opportunity to get to know the other youth in the mountain biking community in a different way, because who they might be standing on or standing next to on a podium is sometimes very different student athletes than they're standing next to as leaders within Teen Trail Corps. So it's very neat opportunity for them to build better relationships, stronger relationships with those around them and their own communities, and building those relationships with local advocacy and conservation groups is a big goal for us to continue working on. We're doing that on the league level and recruiting more Teen Trail Corps committee members to help lead this program throughout the state, and making sure there's representation from all different areas of the state, and that we can continue to build connections with more groups who are helping keep these spaces available, and getting more of them for North Carolina families and youth to enjoy. And then we are going to have Trail Week again this year. We did our first one last season, as Brian mentioned. So in March, we're going to have 1 week that we're really trying to hit 1,500 trail work hours in that 1 week. So lots of ways that we're growing Teen Trail Corps across the state, and really excited to continue to develop those relationships and opportunities for our families.
Shell, awesome job. Thank you for sharing what's coming. And Palmer, I think happy to take any questions from the group here as we close out. And thanks again for the opportunity to share a little bit about what we do.
It's a very inspiring presentation. Thank you so much. I have a question. What's been the growth of the North Carolina chapter, say, over the past 10 years and 5 years? Are you seeing a tremendous, like with all the clubs on the map, like are those relatively new, or have they been around for a little while?
I think, Shell, you can probably speak better to like the early years of 100 or so athletes. And now last season, Palmer, we had just under 900 athletes registered. So it's been significant growth. I think we're in our sweet spot right now, meaning we've seen that 800, 900 number for the past few seasons. And for example, this season we have 6 new teams, but we had 5 teams that stood down for whatever reason. There are 2 types of teams in this league. One is called a composite team. It's usually someone in the county, and they accept kids from all types of schools. And then we have school-based teams. There's an interested adult at that school, and the kids are just recruited, so to speak, from that school, and then they form a school-based teams. We see a lot of expanding and collapsing. Composite will break out a school team, loses interest, comes back in. So it's just kind of an expansion and contraction. As it relates to trails, Palmer, what would help this league are more trails locally for teams to form at. I'll mention Johnson County specifically. There's a team in Johnson County, and they're kind of in that spot of there was an interested parent or two, some kids that like mountain biking, they're getting older, not a lot of interest, not a lot of trails in Johnson County. And so it was hard for them for those few years to get up towards the Raleigh area to find some trails. It's a healthy commute to Harris Lake or Crabtree to do it. So trails in those communities does really kind of inspire okay, there's something here for us to use. And there's a little bit of stability at that point when they've got some trails to use.
Well, I was going to ask what your greatest challenge is, and I guess that's one of them is spaces. What else are your challenges?
I would say I always answer that in kind of two levels, Palmer, a league level and then a team level. I already mentioned the team level, just local trail availability and then trail access, not that they're privileged per se, but they're very fortunate. A lot of our school teams have a trailhead right off their school. And so there's like no, like parents don't have to get them back to practice and just reducing the commute time or even a connected community, Palmer, where a kid could get on a bike and not risk his or her life in road traffic. The bike to the mountain bike trail to do practice would be incredibly beneficial. And then we might have talked about this before we hit record, but at the league level, when you have 500 kids on a weekend, parking spaces, space to get 50 kids at a time in and out of the race course. Not a lot of trail systems around North Carolina have that logistics infrastructure for a big organization like this. And there's some things we can do internally in terms of a conference model. Maybe there's an East and West conference in the future, reduce the size of the event, so to speak. But right now, that's the big challenge at the league level is just finding a space where we can, park 700 cars next to a mountain bike trail. That's kind of rare.
Well, Sean and Brooke, do y'all have some questions or do you want to share experiences in your community about what your maybe dreams are with respect to collaborating with this program?
I don't have any questions, Palmer, but I just wanted to say thanks to the group. I know being in White Lake and being associated with the various groups in North Carolina, at the Bladen County level for economic development related purposes, this was a big deal for us. I know there's a picture on the slide from the Browns Creek Trail, and we enjoyed that event. And quite frankly, are looking forward to the next event. So always looking to build, always looking to incorporate into what we do, but just wanted to simply say thanks for everything that's being done already.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Browns Creek is one of our favorites. As a matter of fact, there were a couple athletes show last week, and we were talking favorite trails, favorite race course. Browns Creek came up a couple times. There's 17 some miles of mountain bike trail out there that's well maintained by K1 Sorba, so it gives us a lot of options. And the picture you saw, Sean, is in that big, massive field next to the trail, so I can fit some cars there. I can do camping on site. Very important.
Yeah.
Palmer, to our families. The other race venue consideration is, can I camp right on site? What a wonderful weekend. Camping with the family, you get right up, you kind of walk your bike over to the team tent, and you start riding.
Sure.
Weekend. And Browns Creek has all of that, and the town treats us very well when we come in. So it's great to come back, and we are coming back, Sean, for the season.
What
Awesome.
county?
Looking forward to it. Bladen County.
That's in Bladen. Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. How about Brooke? How about you in Durham?
Yeah, definitely exciting to hear about this program and would love to I was just looking at the map and it looks like there's 3 different groups in Durham County that I'd be excited to reach out to and meet. And yeah, just the advocacy with the different trail care efforts that your group does. It really sounds like a great way to, build that volunteerism and create a culture of trail advocacy. I did have a couple of questions though. I'm wondering how you all go about choosing which trails to do trail work on for your rides and races. Is that just kind of determined by the different groups within each county?
Brooke, I think that's the best answer. It depends on where we are, what the need is. At the league level for those events we showed on the slide, if we're going to race there, we start talking very early with those venues of, hey, here's when we're coming, here's the course we want to use. And we just ask the question, what would you want improved while we're there? And or we see improvements. We send out a survey team to take a look at these places before we race them. And we notice, hey, this probably needs to be shifted this way, or maybe we reroute that way. We were just Palmer, the NICA hierarchy of needs. We were at this 2 weekends ago, the North Carolina Center for Automotive Research in Garysburg, North Carolina. It's north of Roanoke Rapids. It's a race car track, motorcycles and race cars, but they have 20 miles of motocross trails in the woods. And so someone told me last year, like, you should go take a look at that. We went up there to take a look, and it's a turnkey facility. They have their own porta-johns, their own EMS, plenty of parking, plenty of camping. And so we went up there to take a look, and Brooke, to answer your question, like those motocross trails, they're pretty rough. they're kind of rutted with those motorcycles running across them. So we spent basically a day and a half doing trail work at this preseason event to fix them up, to make them race ready. So it really just depends on the need of the venue and or what we think needs to be done before we go and race at Brook.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. I was also wondering, I think Brian, you were mentioning that it might be difficult for some kids to actually get to the trailhead. So, and I was just wondering if you do any like on-road like training for folks who need to simply, ride their bike to a trailhead, or for kids who maybe want to venture into roadway bicycling.
We are exclusively mountain bikers, Brooke. We don't get into any type of road cycling, and we try and keep our kids off the road whenever possible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but it is from all the I think two considerations when I mentioned the ability to commute to practice is one is families are always very, very busy, multiple kids, multiple sports schedules, and the parent getting a kid to practice or back is sometimes difficult, and be nice if the kid can just get there. And then I think too, just the financial aspect. We are open to all. It's one of our hashtags is there's no bench in mountain biking. You come, you get to ride. But that's all financial backgrounds and the like, and it's a little bit of a barrier entry to get a mountain bike nowadays. But some families, it's pretty expensive to put in all that time and effort to get back and forth to practice, and the gas money. And think of our league level events, Palmer, more venues all across North Carolina. I think our average travel time is 3 to 4 hours to get to any one of those venues from all those teams across North Carolina. It's a big state, awesome state, but it costs a bit to travel, and we're looking for ways to reduce that for our families.
Thank you.
If I could circle back to your earlier question, Brooke, about how to kind of facilitate volunteer work at a trail. Our teams are also doing team level trail work events as well. So it's not just the events that the league themselves are hosting for the entire league, but our teams are getting out, and for practice, we'll do a trail work day. So if there's teams in your area that you reach out to connect with, and you've got trails that need some work that they're willing to come invest in, they can be such a huge asset. There's been multiple instances in the last 2 seasons alone where I've kind of watched organizations that really had no connections, or just trail bosses who really had no connection to a NICA team, that have built those connections, and now are places that those teams go and ride regularly, and those kids take a ton of pride in investing into, and love to share with their friends about. So that can be a really great asset, as well as just reaching out to local teams.
Thank you, Shell. That's really awesome to hear.
Well, thank you both, Brian and Shell. This has been really informative, and we look forward to sharing this content with others from across the state. And we'd love to just highlight what you're doing on our social media and such. So I'm going to reach out to you for that. I'm going to stop the recording.